What's up? Travel Chronicles, chapter 72. This is this will be the final election synopsis type thing for me for 2020. Did vote today already. Got my son in there. He voted already, so his first time voting. That's pretty exciting. And I don't know how big or how close Ohio will be. My feeling is right now that it'll go Trump pretty easy, but anything can happen. The big thing for me with the polling and the numbers they keep putting out there, and I kind of explained this to him a little bit this morning, is it's kind of like when Dewey was pronounced president, where they thought he was going to win based on the polls, and no matter what day, which way I go, the sun's always behind me. I'm always heading away from it. But they projected Dewey as the winner based on these polls, and the polls were skewed because the only people they could poll were people who had telephones, and the only people who had telephones were people who were more, well-to-do. You had to have a little bit of money back then to have a phone, so the people they polled were just kind of rich people and like, oh, hey, we're voting for Dewey. Oh, okay, so that must be the one who's going to win because we polled people. And I think, my gut feeling is that these polls are not being representative. They're not getting a representative cross-section of everybody, and I don't know if that's intentional or they're just not able to reach, the number of people. So 1,000 people, yeah, that's a great sample size. But if you can't get, a certain number of people who are either registered Democrat or registered Republican or registered Independent, if you can't get that split, like 45-45, whatever the national makeup is, and you're polling, 1,000 people, but you have 700 Democrats, and they're like, well, we're voting for the Democrat, then that's not maybe a representative poll if it's not the breakup of how the electorate is. And I think the polls need to match more of what the breakup is, rather than, well, we ask 1,000 people, because now where before you were getting the people who were going to vote Republican to vote Dewey, now maybe you're not able to reach those people because, I see a number come up, I'm not answering it, right? I think before you had caller ID and, voicemails and stuff, everybody went to cell phones and things. And there was a point where people on cell phones were hard to reach, right? They're not hard to reach now. Because I get calls all the time on my cell phone. So, that's not the case. But at home, the people have the landlines. That number pops up. If you don't know that number, or it's like, oh, Research Institute this, polling that, I don't necessarily want to talk, right? I have other stuff to do. I don't want to spend 5 minutes answering questions on the phone about who I'm going to vote for, right? Everybody wants to be paid. Everybody wants some compensation for their opinions. So, I don't think the polling is reaching I don't want to say the right demographic, but the right representation of the general voting public. How about that? That makes sense? Maybe I'm just in my own little bubble and thinks that Trump's going to win, but I just, last time I think he had like a 16% chance or 13% chance to win, and somehow he won, right? And we're not talking about the popular vote, because at this point, Republicans have pretty well sacrificed California and New York, which is, the way they're playing the game, and you play by the rules of the game. And if the rules of the game were, hey, we need 50% of people, to win the election, then you're going to go for the large population centers. Those are the people who are going to get bombarded with advertisements and phone calls, and, because you can get more bang for your buck. You get a lot more eyes on stuff. So that's what they would do. But when you have to go state by state, and areas are just as important as population centers. If you're not going to win a state, you don't go to that state. You don't spend money in that state. You spend money in a state where you have a chance to win. And that's what they do. So I don't have a problem with it. I know the ads keep popping up on YouTube at home, or don't vote for Doug Jones in Alabama. I have no idea how that's working. Is Comcast even in Alabama? But it'll be really, really interesting to see what comes out of this election. And if Trump does win, and I think it actually could be pretty overpoweringly towards Trump, and part of that is, there was a guy who does his 13 keys to winning the presidency, right? And there's a couple of things that he looks at that to me are just they're more subjective than they are objective. You can look at the economy. Okay, there's a recession. What was the recession caused by, though? It's caused by a pandemic. And then you kind of look, well, how was the pandemic handled? And today at voting, right, you're supposed to wear a mask. And everybody in line, everybody working had a mask on, to their credit. Right? You have to have your ID when you come up. They have glass up, protecting the people behind the glass. So, that was a good thing. They have a thing for you to sign with electronically, which I'm not a huge fan of that, because I think the signatures can be really screwed up. But, I have my photo ID, so I'm not overly worried. Nobody's going to take my spot. I'm going to get my vote. But you have that, the glass up. Each time you signed, you had to put it in another thing, and then they wiped them all down later. So that was good. What else? They gave you your own pen, so I got my own pen. Check that out, voting pen. Because that's a good idea. You're not reusing the same things. They had the actual voting panels all spread out, so there's only two at a table where you set it kind of across from each other. And then, other than that, it's already kind of a spread out area for the 5 or 6 precincts that are in there. Worked out well. They had the hand sanitizer and wipes, whatever you wanted. I don't know if they were only letting so many people in, but they weren't letting people in before other people had finished. At least the weather's nice here. I don't know how they're doing it everywhere else, but, at least it was nice weather. They were keeping people away from the restroom, so it was mostly just into the auditorium, vote, and then right back out. We'll see what happens. And the other thing I fully expect is that all the racial stuff is probably going to go away after this. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing. I think BLM going away is probably a good thing, because that has become just a political monster. It's not accomplishing any of the goals that they wanted to. And you had people who were high up in that organization. It's an organization now, for one. It's not even just a movement. But people in that organization that are spending the money that they're getting donated on cars and clothes and stuff, and it's just, one, it's an extremely bad look, and two, they're trying to, get you defund the police. Which, if you vote no on a levy, I guess that's technically kind of defunding the police. As long as you're paying property tax. Some people are going to look at that and be like, well, you know what? I'll pay whatever for that. And part of me says my tax keeps going up every year and I don't get a say on hardly any of it. And, you know, if I have an option for something, maybe you need to figure something else out. So I'm not overly enthused with all the levies for things. You know, that's why we got to hit the property owners up all the time. Like, do a fundraiser or something. Have them all the time. Like, you can't come up with a way to just, I'm not going to say do something on the side, but just have a means. Alright, that's going to do for today. We'll see what happens with COVID after this election too, right? Because this is kind of the day we've been waiting for to see what's going to break with COVID. Like, I was worried that they were going to shut everything down. It's like, oh no, we can't have the election. We can't have people coming in here because of that. They actually had a thing where you could vote curbside if you had been positive or suspected positive or on quarantine or something, where you could actually pull up curbside and vote. So, you know, that's good. I think the response to COVID has actually been pretty amazing. You know, to think we were at in March and to where we're at now, and the precautions that have been taken. You know, signs have been put up, people's ability to willingness to wear masks. Now, we did have an upwards meeting last night for the youth basketball league, and you know, everybody there is pretty much adamant. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to do this, and I'm just like, man. You know, when you have a kid in something, or, you know, your work dictates to you that you're going to do it, it's kind of a condition of employment, you know, it's whatever. You know, and I've been wearing the mask in and out for, well, at least since March, so, you know, 7 months. You know, at this point, it's whatever. You know, and I got spare mask and other stuff laying here if I need something in a pinch. But if I go in somewhere, I'm going to wear a mask. It's just what it is right now. You know, and part of it is I don't want to deal with the repercussions of being lazy or not diligent when it comes to something like that. You know, I just don't want to deal with, oh my gosh, you're at risk. You put yourself at more risk. If you go to a store or something, there's no amount of contact tracing that's going to come back to you being in that store to say, oh, hey, somebody was in there who had COVID, so now you need to quarantine. That's not going to happen. You know, you can still go to those types of places. You can go to sporting events if you wanted to. If you can get a ticket, you can get a ticket. And people aren't going to tell you can't. Go to church. It's, you know, you can do whatever you want. It's just a matter of what risk are you willing to accept for what you're doing. And it's the same thing with that, you know, sport is like you're kind of putting yourself out there, you're risking it. And you don't want to do something, oh, look, you got this new building. Oh, you got this. Oh, let's figure out how we can get some money out of this. And, you know, I don't want to be silly about stuff or not diligent about stuff. Putting something down on the road there. Got to figure out how many people drive across the road. Whatever. But you don't want to be not diligent about things. You're lazy about it. Just, you know, take the precautions because that's what's out there right now. And no leader's going to say, oh, you don't have to do it. At least not until after this election. There's a possibility after this that people will start to actually be leaders again instead of, oh, we can't move. Oh, how many people have died from this? Oh, 200,000. What's our population? 330 million? Oh, okay. Yeah, let's shut everything down. We're taking a lot of precautions. More precautions I've ever seen for anything ever. And probably will ever see again. I'm not saying I won't maybe wear a mask or a gaiter. I actually kind of like it for some things. And if it keeps me from being sick, hey, I'll take that. Because a lot of people are dumb. If your nose is running and you're coughing all over the place, I don't want you in my face. I'm sorry. Go get better. And then we'll talk. But, all right. That's all I got for today. So be careful. Stay COVID free. And vote. Vote early, vote often. Just kidding. Don't vote on. Just vote when you're supposed to vote. One time. Legally. All right, later.